What up, guys? Welcome back to Think Shank, where we tackle questions about sports that aren't raised nor explored enough as far as we can tell. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkShank and email us at thethinkshank@gmail.com. I'm Skyler Reinhardt, your personal NBA junkie, philosopher, and tour guide, and today, oh boy, we are doing it half for clout and half for sanity because there has been, there's just been a lot that's happened and a lot to reflect on and a lot to sort of explore and analyze. So all of this excitement and intensity for the last third of the season, more or less, are kind of killing me. And if you're watching this in the future, you can probably notice there's a lot I want to get off my chest. So you can find me personally on Twitter at Reinhardt Skyler. That's ReinHardtSkyler, no A's, and Instagram at Skyler Sam, SAM Reinhardt. So what we want to do here is what I'm calling winter break takes. Obviously a reference back to school. Winter over there is, it's a little bit sided as well, but it's not perfectly even. Same thing with this. We have played about 2/3, a little more than 2/3 now, of the regular season. And so the original vision for this series was to get it out before the conclusion of All-Star break. Clearly was not able to do that, having a day job and learning this super fun, realm and skill set, basically, with producing video is what it is. So sorry I'm a little bit late, but I really, really think that this series, while it is pretty dense and pretty detailed, I think it is going to be very insightful, even with a lot of the statistics pulling from kind of Wednesday, Thursday last week, right before we were supposed to resume. But directionally, thematically, I really, really think this is going to be insightful for everyone. All right. So concept here, winter break takes, is to pump the brakes and take a look around. We want to answer this question. What have we seen from this year's contenders so far? And here's the framework that I developed to motivate the answer for it. So number one, the storylines for each of the contending teams, what is kind of defined, trades, emojis, whatever. The finalized rosters, glimpses of the strengths, weaknesses that have stuck out to me, both on the court as well as intangibles. And then, of course, the improvement areas to close out in the regular season. So I have, verbally, audio, video, I want to walk through sort of my thoughts and everything there. But importantly, I want to call out, check the pinned files on my socials. So I will be uploading these sort of one-page summaries, executive summaries, if you will. That's going to organize a lot of my findings in the format that I just outlined for each one of the contending teams. I just wanted one view for each of the teams. If you don't have time to listen to all this stuff, and I know it's pretty dense and pretty long, so I am not going to take it personally, but I am just a very, very passionate believer and harbor of radical transparency. I think it is amazing that people, talk about things and bring up statistics and bring up analysis and things like that. But personally, I just find it really hard to keep things straight and actually log things. And so, it's not necessarily about dumping a bunch of stuff on you. I just want it there for reference. So if you, of course, want to scrub through this video or episode, or not the episode, you just play which episode you want, but if you want to just check out those files and take a look there as well, there probably will be a little bit more detail than I'm going to cover even in each one of these episodes, but wanted to share that with you guys. So at least we're all looking and reading off of the same page. And also, it should be helpful to reference once the regular season is done. So without further ado, I said the thing about statistics from last week, so without further ado, please enjoy this episode. We are covering a lot. So thank you so much for tuning in, and let's think Shank. Hi. Welcome back. So we are going to continue to steamroll right down the Western Conference, and right now we are on the 8th place team, the Sacramento Kings. Before jumping in, I will say definitely a lot of bias here, and unfortunately did not have time to do a total deep dive from an analytical perspective. I'm going to be making some qualitative assessments here, eye test stuff, so be aware. I just want to get the disclaimer out, but I think, again, directionally, thematically, they should still be insightful for explaining some of the stuff we've seen so far this season. All right, let's jump into it. For the overall season, they are 31-23. As of 2024, they are 12-11th. Their overall net differential has not wavered. It has been 19th overall, and they have been 19th this year. Their offensive rating has been 14th overall, and they've been 17th this year. And their defensive rating also hasn't changed, 21st overall and 21st this year. Your starting unit is De'Aaron Fox, Herter, Barnes, Keegan Murray, and Sabonis. And then off the bench, you have Malik Monk, Trey Lyles, Davion Mitchell gets some minutes. Vezenkov comes in a little bit, but that is pretty much it. You do have JaVale McGee, break glass in case of emergency type of stuff. But I think, overall this won't be a huge McGee year and season. Okay, so first and foremost, what I want to jump into is the very first storyline, most important storyline I think for the season for the Kings. So one, they didn't make any big offseason moves or changes. They also didn't make any real swings at the trade deadline. In the offseason before the season started, they did get Vezenkov, the former EuroLeague MVP, who I'll talk about in a minute, but that wasn't making enormous waves, and the reason I'm calling this out first is to set the table for this very first storyline, which is sophomore slump versus stagnation. When you hear the Kings season this year brought up, what I've heard a lot of the time are really two schools of thought. There is the one side that is the sophomore slump side. When you think about last year, they had the best offense in the league. They were, electric, playing for each other, great story, light the damn beam, all of that. But they overperformed. They're not actually that good. And now you're kind of seeing that this year with them taking a step back. Obviously, they're 8th in the Western Conference right now. And then the other side is stagnation. So like I said, with the lack of big swing trades and anything else, they held tight, and the rest of the Western Conference really just got a ton better. So I want to try and define, identify, introduce some guardrails as far as where the truth kind of lies there. Obviously, it is both of those things. But I want to start with stagnation actually first. So really quick to just set the tone here. Here is what kind of the ultra high level, most reductive view of the season, how it's looked for the Kings. So last year, they had the best offensive rating in the entire NBA at 119.7 points per possession. Their effective field goal percentage was 57.5, and that was the second best in the entire NBA. Best offensive rating, second best effective field goal percentage. Holy cow, really good. This year, they are 14th in offensive rating, like I mentioned, at 117.4 points per possession, and then their effective field goal percentage this year is 56.6%, which puts them at 9th. So I know it's hard to follow along with random stats and numbers, audioly or sonically, even if you're watching this. But here's the point. There was a 2.3 points per possession difference in their offensive rating last year versus this year, and a less than 1%, 1 percentage point decrease in their effective field goal percentage this year compared to last year. So both very helpful key indicators for offensive potency have gone down, but the deltas are not big at all. Literally a difference of one basket is what has really changed overall for the offensive rating, for example, and their ranking has gone from 1st to 14th. And less than 1% drop off in field goal percentage has resulted in 2nd place in the league to 9th. That's insane. And if you have any basketball people on your timelines or whatever, you have probably heard the offensive explosion in the NBA is a literal topic of, like, heated topic of discussion, schematically, philosophically, from like a governance perspective as far as the officiating, all of that. Definitely its own video, really interesting topic, but today, right, I really just want to talk about the what here. What are we seeing and why? So that is not much of a delta, but it has obviously rendered them not nearly as successful compared to the broader league. Okay, cool. And yeah, so that is kind of the stagnation piece. And then what I want to do is let's look at the sophomore slump. Okay. On offense, we're going to stay on offense here. They are shooting worse from the field literally from everywhere on the court. Rim, mid, three. Worst field goal percentage from every single place on the court compared to last year. They are, on the defensive end, they are 21st in defensive rating. Last year they were 25th in defensive rating. Slight uptake there. They are still, however, the 3rd worst team in opponent field goal percentage at 28th, right, in the league, and their opponent free throw rate is 25th. So, slightly better overall defensive rating, but they cannot stop people from scoring on them, and they also are giving free throws away quite a lot. So, not amazing there. I would just say also, again, at the team level right here, starting at the team, their free throw rate is not great on the offensive end for themselves. They are 23rd. And their offensive rebounding is 23rd as well in the league as far as their ability to get offensive rebounds for them. Okay. And then just getting back into it, obviously. Let me actually flip it. So those are obviously the weaknesses. They're shooting worse from the field. They're still not getting to the line that much. They're still not getting a lot of offensive rebounds. Defensively, they can't stop anybody from scoring on them. They're giving away free throws a lot. Even though the defensive rating is slightly better, I want to flip now to the strengths quickly. Sticking with the defensive side, they're actually 2nd in the NBA in defensive rebounding, or how many offensive rebounds they're giving up to their opponents, right? Thank you, Sabonis, being an absolute black hole out there, and Kirby sucking up all of the defensive rebounds you could ever want. So that is a strength of theirs. And then back to the offense, which everyone cares the most about. They are 9th in the league, like I mentioned before, with the effective field goal percentage. So even though last year they were 2nd, 9th is still top 10. That is great. Their rim field goal percentage is 7th, and their mid-range field goal percentage is 4th. So, pretty solid as far as percentiles are concerned, right? These are all relative things to how is the overall league doing. Okay, comparatively, they are doing well at the rim and in the mid-range, and then I guess overall from the field goal percentage thing is still top 10. However, again, they are shooting, compared to themselves last year, worse from the field from everywhere. So, interesting. Could be defensive scheming. How do we slow guys down? Maybe people caught up this year, people more healthy, whatever. So that is that. That is kind of the team level view that I wanted to show you guys. And I apologize. I know doing an apples to apples thing from last year to this year would have been a lot more helpful, but like for the rim field goals versus mid-range, whatever, The big things to take away, I think, are they're shooting worse from the field from everywhere, but they are still pretty effective as far as, offensively speaking. When you think about the effective field goal stuff, they don't get to the free throw line very much. They don't offensive rebound very much. They cannot stop the other teams from scoring on them, and they are giving away free throws quite a bit. Cool. So, from the team level, that is that. And when we think about the sophomore slump, obviously still a potent offense, but just not as good. Now I want to double click into the player level stuff. And I'm going to start with De'Aaron Fox because, he is supposed to be their dynamite number one guy. And last year he really was. I don't remember how many votes he got for MVP, but, he was at least fantastic. And this year, unfortunately, has seen a lot more inconsistency. And as I'm about to illustrate for you, what I think is most concerning about it is it seems to be a lot of mental. Barring us finding out, I don't know, at the end of the regular season or after the postseason maybe, we find out that he was hurt or something. I don't know. But it is kind of alarming. Okay, let's jump into it. So, two main areas that Fox has kind of had this slump or taken a step back in. Number one, which is extremely important for him and his overall gravity and strain on defenses, is his free throw percentage. He is shooting 70% from the line, and last year he was 78%. And for reference, that is virtually what Giannis shoots from the free throw line. Not great. Not great at all, especially, again, when Fox's, so much of Fox's gravity is the fact that he is maybe the fastest straight line guy literally in the entire NBA. He's so fast. And if you can't actually get in his way or slow him down or whatever in the open court, or he beats you one-on-one, whatever, he developed really great acumen and ability to draw fouls, knowing where guys' hands are and how to sort of play off that and get himself to the line. But you have to follow through on that. You have to actually hit the free throws. And I think, according to some of the broadcasts I've heard from watching their games, Sacramento guys are saying that Mike Brown has even mentioned to reporters, that is really, that's a really big deal for our team. Fox's ability, again, with the gravity and the pressure and all that stuff and what it does to open up everybody else and, winning in the psychological realm or turns, if you will, as far as getting guys psyched out about, his ability to get them in foul trouble and blah, 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 that matters. Secondly, is his 2-point field goal percentage. He is shooting 52% this year, and last year he was 59%, I've noticed. And I wish I had time to look into the attempts stuff, at least for the 2-pointers, but I'm not entirely sure, what the factors are driving it. I don't have access to Second Spectrum yet, which would be able to tell us, what kind of offensive sets and actions is he actually shooting maybe worse on? Is it when Keegan Murray is setting a screen and he is coming down, maybe that switch to the 4 off of the 1 isn't a great matchup this year? I don't know. For example, maybe it's in transition, the 2-pointers and the floaters on the move just aren't falling. I don't know. But just overall, the 2-pointers are down. What I would say, though, is this last point around his performance this year is from 3. This has been a development area of his and a focus area since he's been in the league. If you followed him at all in Kentucky and his early years here in the league, obviously, again, his physical tools were there. He was super, super fast, downhill rim pressure, his ability to draw fouls, ability to finish, near the rim, even among the trees and size and all those things, but the 3 really wasn't a big part of his repertoire. And this year, and I think towards the end of last year in the playoffs as well, I would say, he's really, really coming to form, especially in the clutch. Obviously, last year he won Clutch Player of the Year. I really think that matters. But this year he is shooting 38% from 3. Last year overall, he only shot 32%. And in addition, this is coming with almost 3 more attempts from 3 a game. So, great. And I think that is kind of the difference maker in terms of making up for the lost ground from him missing so many free throws, is the fact that he is really coming along as an outside shooter, which is awesome. Back to what I was saying about Grayson Allen and, I'm trying to remember. I don't think it was, I don't even remember. I don't know if it was someone in Dallas or not, but the natural progression for a lot of these point guards, at least that I've seen, I don't know, this isn't science, it's just me talking into the void, is you get a lot of respect from the outside shooting, get really good at outside shooting so that guys have to close out on you harder, learn how to attack closeouts and finish downhill in traffic, whether that's shorter or actually finishing through contact, or, and I guess or develop your ability to get yourself to the line, right? Basically attacking closeouts, whatever. Once you have the pressure behind the arc and then at the rim, again, whether that's finishing or getting fouled, then the playmaking needs to come along, and that can obviously be hand in hand and simultaneous, but you understand what I'm saying here. Fox is the counter argument to that take. He was really, really good at getting downhill, getting in transition, finishing at the rim, and getting fouled, but the outside shooting just hadn't been a thing for him. Your Ja Morant's almost. So that is a good sign. And to bring it back quickly to the 2-point percentage, like field goal percentage dipping, basically, I don't know how much of that is coming down to an attempt/prevalence thing where he's just not taking that many attempts and therefore the smaller sample size, bring on some noise there. This is where I'll bring in my eye test and qualitative stuff. Based on what I've been able to see, it has seemed less sharp on his end as far as, as far as his finishing, near the rim. That is something I can look at and cleaning the glass, and I should have, but it hasn't felt necessarily as sharp. Like getting these, really tough and ones to fall, or the bank shot finishes or whatever to fall. That is a thing, but I would also say, back to the attempts argument and the prevalence and the noise there, I feel like I haven't seen nearly as many of those really difficult turnaround jump shots that he did a ton last year and made it felt like at a really good clip. Like, his ability, he's lefty, whatever, turn around, whatever, and he just was kind of soaking wet from there. It really has felt like that has been intentionally reduced in volume. And I'm assuming that is in the hopes of expanding his perimeter game from outside shooting. But that is not an explanation for the free throws, which I think is by and large the biggest problem here. And why I said at the top, the fact that, even if there was a latent injury or some physical concern here, I don't think... Well, one, it doesn't look like there is. Just strictly speaking, his speed, whatever, all of that, it looks fine. But two, if it is a more mental thing, I think that becomes a lot muddier to solution and improve. Not rocket science there. Free throw shooting is virtually the most isolated skill that you can have as a high-level basketball player. Obviously, there's no defense. As far as the shooting part, not the actual foul drawing, but that is what's concerning to me. And in addition to just the overall summary of 70% from the line, that's what Giannis is shooting. Last year was 80%. It was the fact that he seemed to start the season right on track. I want to say around the time the in-season tournament finally ended and people did their way too early MVP straw polls and all that shit, De'Aaron Fox was right up near the top in the early days of the season, if you remember. If you were tuned in, he was probably top 6, 7, whatever, which is kind of where he was last year. And even his overall box score metrics this year have been I mean, not too different. Again, making up for the lack of free throw making with a lot more threes and stuff like that. Like, you know, it hasn't seemed to drop off that much, but it really has felt like the free throw stuff had come in very unexpectedly, like blindsided him maybe around that December timeframe, and that seemed to be symptomatic of an overall trend in his play. He became a lot more inconsistent really suddenly, at least to me. And the fact that it hasn't really felt not fixed, but alleviated and kind of rectified to an extent is really what is concerning to me, especially with the free throws. Again, if it's a mental thing, fuck. Like, I don't really know what Mike Brown is supposed to do. And it is very weird as well that the three-point shooting is up, but the free throws are down. Typically what you'll see for talented, like, good shooters is a relatively strong correlation between good free throw shooting and good perimeter shooting. Just is what it is. There's a reason why Steph Curry has the highest free throw percentage in NBA history, and also is the best shooter to ever play basketball. It's, you know, it makes sense. That is another thing. So maybe you can flip that on its head and use that as a silver lining thing. Like, eventually the free throws should catch up, but yeah, I'm not really sure how you have almost like a 10 percentage point drop, but your threes go up. Anyway, so that to me is very concerning. All right, secondly, from a player perspective, I want to touch on Murray. So Keegan, the darling probably of this entire Sacramento squad, whatever, 23 years old, something like that, 22 I don't even know, but great build, great profile, 6'9", long, defends like a dog, can stretch the floor. Different from Fox in that it wasn't a step back. It was, by my estimation, it seems to be he hasn't been able to take as big of a step forward as a consistent contributor to the team, specifically on offense. And I guess what's most concerning about that to me is I don't think it is for, one, lack of trying, and two, lack of opportunity, for lack of a better term. Like, watching their games this year, it feels like, one, Keegan is taking more shots, just objectively great, but two, they're running actual plays and actions for him to take more shots. Like, it is clearly a thing that they are trying to do more and lean into. But again, qualitative assessment here. Him taking more shots has not felt like it is necessarily translated to him playing better. You see him doing kind of like a Klay Thompson, like, pin down thing where he's coming off a curl and, like, you know, Dame Lillard will just rise up and try to get a foul or whatever. But you know what I mean? Dribble, handoff, whatever thing, and he'll ride. It hasn't really felt, you know, really like it's clicked and been super beautiful. Again, 22, 23 years old, that could just be, you know, a timing thing. Hey, you know, I mean, he has shown and proven, you know, a handful of, he's shown a lot of flashes. Like, he clearly is a very good shooter. It is just another level to kind of get used to and get consistent at, as far as the field goal attempts and understanding the actions, and particularly when you go from a maybe a guy who's like fifth on the scouting report every night to third. Well, considering how many defensive stoppers every team kind of has, that actually could be a really big deal, because all of a sudden you might, you might find yourself matched up against the Alexander Walkers of the world, the Jonathan Kumingas, right? I mean, they are both fours, but you understand what I'm saying. It's like a different kind of ball game, psychologically and schematically, to, I think, really unlock and match that level that I think the Kings not only need, but really planned and banked on. Next, quickly, is Herter. Don't have stats on him either, but this is, I almost feel like you don't need to. If you found yourself, for whatever reason, sitting in on a Kings game this year, you have probably heard the broadcasters mention his up and down season. And I'm sorry, just side note, can we just not just clown this kid? I feel like, especially when the Kings have had their national games or whatever, obviously it isn't a ton and, it's more permissible on those settings, but it'd be really cool if Kevin Huerter could make a shot and have it not be commented on as Kevin Huerter having such a down year, gets it together, or whatever. Jesus. Okay, yeah, he was great last year. It has been a lot less consistent, but I don't know. That's just something I've noticed is can we just calm down a little? Has been very, very much more up and down. And that is not only manifested in what feels to be his field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, whatever. Again, I didn't have time to look into that. But it's also taken form of Mike Brown bringing him off the bench. He's been definitely all around kind of their rotations and lineups and stuff, which is obviously not a great sign and a great thing to see ever. I will say as of late, meaning maybe the week before All-Star break and since it resumed a week ago, it has felt like there is not only a lot more trust, but a lot more confidence in Kevin as far as the shot making and being, a starter, basically. But what I will say, particularly from him, which it's not even unique to this season and what the up and down shooting kind of means, but he is similar, in my opinion, to a Taurean Prince, where because of his limitations, particularly on defense, it is really hard to justify heavy minutes for him if he is not making shots. And so that is just a reality, and unfortunately how it needs to happen. Physically and whatever else, it just kind of is what it is. But we are all very much aware of how talented he is as a shooter and can be. And so I hope that he, rides this recent momentum and, keeps it going there. So do not be surprised if this continues to be up and down so much that he ends up coming off the bench or something else. Last but not least, Vezenkov. Really the only off-season acquisition that the Kings got over the summer last year. He is a former EuroLeague MVP. I think I definitely mentioned him in an earlier podcast as far as sort of trade targets for the Lakers. It seems to be a really great stretch he's 6'9", great body, great frame, rise up and shoot, at that size. It's obviously a great thing to see and have. He has only played 11.6 minutes per game this season and has only played at all in 34 of their 54 games. As of recording this, I know we're basically at 60 games now. Apologies, but he has 38% from three overall, puts him at 58th percentile relative to his position, a power forward. So not incredible, but also just not a ton of minutes. And I just want to bring this up briefly, especially in the context of the sophomore slump. Mike Brown, honestly, a little bit similar to the Bol thing, where Phoenix is just not healthy, and you just have these guys. Why not? I know our precious Keegan Murray needs to be fucking cultivated and protected at all costs, and his minutes are inarguable, not up for discussion, but listen, if Kevin Huerter is running around and having a 2-for-9 night, why not put in Vezenkov, who, granted, he is not an incredible lockdown defender. I don't think he is as mobile as Keegan Murray, for example. If Keegan was going to drop into the 3 and guard the small forward and Vezenkov 6 with the power forward, I think that would probably be the best way to do it. I just felt like he showed a lot of promise, and this is a very hipster sort of take thing, looking at the footage before the season of how well he played in EuroLeague. Obviously, Euro guys are very hard to project out into how well they're going to translate out here, but just the off-ball cutting, the outside shooting, the no hesitation stuff, the minutes that I have seen from him, it is not only clear, one, that again, he is suffering from the Keegan Murray is the future syndrome that the Kings have, and that's not even necessarily a bad thing, but that is just a tough spot for Vezenkov to even be in as it is. But when he is on the floor, it is very clear as well that he is not really getting too many plays called for him. Floor spacers and just shooters in general, man. I just think that it's just hard. It's just hard when your minutes are so restricted. It's hard to get into a real flow there, especially when you're coming from overseas too and you're trying to adjust. So anyway, I was just going to throw that out there. I had higher hopes for him. Maybe an option as we come down the line here, but it seems most likely Mike Brown is not really going to give him a chance. So putting the blast out, Lakers, some other team, I don't know, man. I just really like his style of play. I really like his flailing around, hustling stuff. And again, with the shooting stuff, it's like he's like a bigger Max Strus. And I'm not just saying that because Max Strus just went nuclear and beat the Mavs at home, which was unbelievable. But their kind of style and approach are very similar in my mind, where they seem to have been, players under Tibbs or something in the past, where it was get every single rebound, run faster, get every fucking board, and do not stop running ever. Always be running, Josh Hart and DiVincenzo. They are clearly hustle guys. They will space the floor. They will have their ups and downs as far as three-point shooting and whatever, but they can play make a little bit. And again, they always run. And Vezenkov is 6'9" and change, and Strus is 6'6" or whatever, so the speed thing is there, but bigger target under the basket, all these other things. I just keep feeling man, maybe consider giving him more minutes. Sorry to make this into a random ass Vezenkov bit. That is it. That is what we have. Okay, so really quick for the overall weaknesses here. I basically covered all the stats, so now it's just, let's just pound out the rest of this. I apologize. Okay. Number one. Let me knock out the rest of the storylines. I apologize. So I basically just expanded out from that sophomore slump versus stagnation take. The overall thing I would say there is the stagnation, the rest of the league being really a lot better. Extremely, extremely relevant, as you saw by the little bit of drop-off overall as a team on the offensive end. And what's that meant for their overall ranking compared to the rest of the league. But the sophomore slump piece is also extremely relevant, and I would say it is by far on Fox's shoulders. And I don't know how to explain it, which I don't love. So I really hope that looks up, and the vibes look up too with Herter and, him being up and down and Murray and stuff. It just feels, it's very, the vibe doctor, not even the body language doctor, because they weren't even that super crazy and outward, juicy and excited anyway. But the vibes just don't seem really great. And again, in my opinion, it all starts with Fox. So I really hope he figures that out. Okay, the second one is Sabonis eats the stat sheet. If you have also heard about the Kings this season, apparently Kendrick Perkins is saying crazy shit now, Sabonis needs to be the MVP. And I am going to double click onto that. I think that is the second biggest thing to call out, that I want to call out as far as what I've been able to discover about Sabonis and his actual impact on team success, and not just filling up the score sheet and the box score. Tell as old as time, thinking about, Russell Westbrook and all of those things. It's great to be a floor raiser, but really what does that translate to as far as your ceiling and your actual success? And I think this is really, really important. Okay, so that is the storyline there that I'm going to get into right after this. But the third one, I basically can cross off. That's the Fox and supporting cast inconsistency. Covered that. And then the other thing is the juice thing. And I will get into that closer to the end because I really want to get to the Sabonis thing. Okay, Sabonis eats a stat sheet. And then as far as this sort of weakness goes, I have Sabonis counting stats does not equal impact. And let me walk you through what I mean. This is how insane of a counting stat, box score stat season Sabonis is having right now. And again, this is from a week ago. might not be exactly accurate. Okay. He is averaging about 20 points a game on 62% from the field, which is 8th in the league, the efficiency. 13 rebounds a game, 1st in the league. 8.3 assists, 6th in the league. He has 50 double-doubles, 1st in the league. And he has 18 triple-doubles, also 1st in the league. Sounds great. Doing a lot of stuff really well. Impact metrics. You guys can tell I I actually try my best to take a look at some of the on-off impact metrics, and I will always say off the jump, from the jump, that they are not perfect, encapsulations of actual impact. You are on the floor with 4 other guys at all times, so Trae Young and Clint Capella, maybe Clint can help shore up some of, Trae's defensive woes, and Trae's on-off isn't as bad. But sometimes, and this is really the extent to which I use these kinds of stats, sometimes the on-off will tell a story that, again, is not perfectly indicative and accurate of exactly what's going on, but the story it is telling is so different than what the box score is telling you that I think you at some point have to give credence to it and consider that it's not necessarily best for the team that this player even do all of the stuff that they're doing. And again, I'm looking at you, Russell Westbrook, MVP or whatever. Here are the impact metrics. So on offense, the Kings are 2.3 points per possession better with Sabonis on the floor. On defense, the Kings are 1.1 points per possession worse with him on the floor, meaning opponents actually shoot better with him on the floor than off the floor. The Kings are worse defensively with Sabonis on the floor. And then offensively, where he's getting all of these really impressive stats and stuff, or a lot of them, is they are only a basket more. They're 2.3 points per possession better with him on the floor. So what does that mean? And just for reference as well, 2.3 points per possession better on offense. That is 71st percentile. Great, definitely soundly above league average, but again, people talking about MVP stuff with that is not even remotely close to what you see in any of the other candidates, just right, which makes sense. And then defensively, that is 44th percentile, to literally be 1.1 points per possession worse off with this guy on the floor. You will see scenarios like James Harden in the Rockets and stuff like that, where he is so burdened and taxed with the offensive load and usage and stuff that when he comes back on defense, I'm just not bought in. I don't have the energy to do it. That's not my job. Sabonis is the center of the team, and that is a really, really big deal as far as centers go, right? We have the small ball stuff with Draymond. We have Anthony Davis and LeBron. You have Nikola Jokic and whatever. Obviously, Jokic is significantly better on the offensive end, but defensively, he has gotten better every single year and is low-key, not even low-key, just blatantly underrated now defensively. You have the top of the league, of course, with Rudy Gobert and all that. My point is, it is very difficult, especially in the Western Conference, I will say. The East is not even close to this, but the Western Conference is weird because it does, in my opinion, it has the best shooters and the best centers in terms of physicality and dominance in the entire league. The East is not even close to there. Obviously, you have Brooke and Bam and all this other stuff who are great centers, whatever. But everyone else, it just drops off a cliff, and it's really crazy how competitive the Western Conference is. You cannot be a negative on defense as the starting center and really have a super high ceiling, in my opinion, without either being the best passer potentially of all time in Nikola Jokic and the system they built around him and whatever. You either have to be that fucking good, or you have to be shored up with the offensive potency around Sabonis. And, historically, aka last year, that is where Foxes came into play. All of the supporting cast with Malik Monk, a walking flamethrower off the bench, Kevin Huerter, all these guys, they made a similar bet that Phoenix has made, and in the past, the Mavericks have made, is we know we are going to bleed on defense, but we are listening to the analytics, and provided we hit whatever that threshold of shots are that we need to hit, we are going to win the game. So I don't want it to be as simple as Sabonis is just misleading everybody into making it seem like he is, a world-class, impactful player or a top 10 player in the league or something. It is admirable and amazing what he is being able to accomplish here. Again, on-off is indicative. A pretty big part of me actually thinks that at least the on-off stuff is heavily due to that slump and stagnation piece. Like, both of them cumulatively, like their wing defenders or whatever, their wing defense isn't as good, and the shot making of the overall team isn't as good. So therefore, the offensive impact with them on the floor isn't as good. Like, I don't know. Just from watching the team, I mean, it's not like he has been drastically worse, obviously not, on offense, right? Like, the shots that he's taking, he's hitting the 8th most efficiently in the entire league. He is the best rebounder in the league. He is also a top 6 assist guy in the, like, there is I'm sure a really strong argument when you dive into the really deep advanced analytics, I'm assuming, that probably have him in a much more positive light. But I think for me, what really it comes down to is that defensive on-off. You cannot be a negative on defense. I'm sorry. Especially when we look into the postseason, they're 8th right now, so they would play Minnesota. Good luck. Good luck, straight up. Good luck out-rebounding Rudy Gobert and Karl-Anthony Towns and Jaden McDaniels. Good luck with that. That might be the hardest shellacking that this iteration of the Kings ever gets, unfortunately. And so that is what I will say on Sabonis. I'm not trying to crucify the guy. We just need to be smart about what we're actually saying here. Okay, the second overall weakness I want to call out is the meeting the level of their competition. So really quickly, there is a stat that I've been sort of tracking that I just find interesting, and especially when there are kind of outlier results or readings of it, I look into it. The Kings are first across the entire league in win differential. So what does win differential mean? What it is a widely accepted, relatively simplistic model of projecting your expected number of wins or expected win percentage based on your effective field goal, like how well your shooting is, how well your opponent's shooting is, free throw rate, and whatever else. It basically looks at your efficiency stats and will project out how many wins you are expected to kind of have based on how well you're doing. And the idea here is to show whether or not they're kind of playing above their heads or below their heads. I think is a good way to think about that. And them being first in that category relative to the league it might sound maybe like a good thing, but it really doesn't. It shouldn't. What it really means to me is, like I said at the top, is they're meeting the level of the they're not blowing out bad teams, which is what your Bostons and Denvers and OKCs and all the top tier teams do. You dominate the bad teams, and while at the same time they are really giving the really top teams a run for their money and playing super well. I was going to bring this up later on, but they had that, probably their biggest hallmark win of the entire season was beating Golden State, their mortal enemy, older brother franchise, back in the fall when Golden State was kind of scrambling, not quite in a free fall, but that was a thing. They have been able to have very competitive matchups against very good teams, but they have also shown that they can drop to the lower level of competition to bad teams, and they're not blowing them out, which is concerning, right? So I just want to call that out. Based on the efficiency stats and how well you're doing, they are outperforming what is expected of them which sure is great, but you should be performing better, especially in better matchups for you when you play worse teams. Like, the inputs to that function should be better as it is. And the fact that you are doing well in that, whatever the function spits out, the fact that that is good, that doesn't mean everything is fine. The inputs need to be better. So you get what I'm saying. That is all I will say there. And then the last thing, I mentioned the Fox and supporting cast inconsistency. Great. Okay. Intangibles quickly. So intangible strengths for the Kings. Number one, continuity, like I said. They didn't really change up the roster very much. Very cool. Two is the closers, former clutch player of the year in De'Aaron Fox. Maybe going through some mental stuff right now. We'll see how tough and resilient he really is. For my money, I think he's going to figure it out. I think, the fact that he went up 6 percentage points in 3-point shooting, but has dropped 8 percentage points in free, like, that is such a outlier stat and trend that I don't know. I have to think he's going to figure some stuff out. We'll see. Maybe just when Jimmy Butler with it in this last third of the season, he'll just decide to turn it up. I don't know. And then the last intangible strength I have is identity. So in addition to the continuity, usually continuity and identity go together. If they're both strengths, they know how they want to play. They saw the proof of concept last year. If De'Aaron Fox doesn't break his finger in like game 6 or whenever that was, and literally Steph Curry doesn't go full Hercules and drop 50 points in game 7 and whatever, obviously with the greats, you just got to tip your cap sometimes. But I don't know, honestly. If Fox doesn't break his finger, there's a decent chance that they actually come out on top in that game 7, which again was at home in Sacramento. With the light the beam shit, and the whole fans were just foaming at the mouth. I don't know. And it goes without saying, we are just such a narrative-driven, ADHD-ridden society at this point, and nobody cares about, like, the only thing people really care about are outcomes. Did you win the ring? Did you not? Did you lose? Did you win? I don't care about how did you win, how did you lose, what do you take away from that. How they lost that series, that is its own sort of thing, but whatever the percentage probability of the different multiverse we were going to move into, if they won or lost, like the probability of each, it must have been like a 52 to 48% kind of split, honestly. So I say that to say they saw the proof of concept with the identity last year. Obviously the stagnation and stuff is what it is, and maybe that has been an impact on, or rather maybe that has been a driver of the sophomore slump that you're seeing with the shooting. Could also be a defensive thing where teams are just like, not everyone, but a lot of teams now are doing the pace and space stuff. You have like the Oklahoma City Thunder now. You have the Mavericks that are doing a lot more stuff with dynamic shot making with Kyrie and these other guys who are kind of self-creating more, especially now with PJ. You know what I mean? Like overall, the fundamental secret sauce, the ingredient here, has been around now for a minute. So that could be a thing. Intangible weaknesses, number 1 is juice. I've tweeted about this, and I think it is very, very important. It is not as simple as what I mentioned earlier. Like, it hasn't felt like they've had some marquee wins this season, which they surely did last year, which, got you on the ESPN daytime sports talk shows, and it got you on the highlight reels on Instagram, and oh man, look at this Keegan Murray guy, and people, before last season were like, wait, Sacramento has a basketball team? That's crazy. I think that juice is not only missing, but it is just so pivotal and important for team success in the postseason. I think a big part of it last year was Monk coming off the bench, who is Monk and Norm Powell. I'm sorry, those are just like two guys. If they were just on worse franchises and starters, like they would probably average like 24 and 22 points a game or something, and probably be like easy sub all-star guys. Monk just is one of my favorite players in the entire league. I love his game, and I love his demeanor. He definitely brings some energy in and of himself. But The big thing I want to call out here with the Kings, and I think the easiest way to do this is to draw a contrast to the Warriors. They're compared to the Warriors all the time, not just because they're 90 minutes apart, but schematically you see similarities. So I think the biggest difference, and this is what I think is going to limit their ceiling the most, is like what is missing for them and what the Warriors have that raises their ceiling so high is Draymond Green, okay? And if you've been following along this entire insanely long, detailed monologue thing in series here, I am not a Draymond Green fan. Full stop. Wouldn't want him on my franchise. Wouldn't pay him money. Whatever. But both things can be true. I can feel that way, but I can also acknowledge how much value that dude brings. And especially, and in my opinion, borderline exclusively paired with the greatest shooter of all time. You put Draymond on the Kings, for example. I doubt he has half of as much value, frankly. That is obviously probably a hot take, but you understand my point. Great for the Warriors. That is just a great pairing. There's obviously so many reasons why they needed to pay him money and keep him around, whatever. The Kings don't even have their version of Draymond Green, and that is on both sides of the court. Yes, Sabonis's passing and playmaking is very prolific and very effective. The dribble handoff stuff, him being a hub and allowing Fox to basically do Steph Curry things. Go run all over the place. You're like the fastest guy in the league. Awesome. Love it. But I think the focal thing with Sabonis versus like Sabonis and Fox versus Draymond and Steph is like, one, I don't think it's as innate as obviously Steph and Draymond, and that's not even a knock on them. They're just very special over there. I think that Steph is just so much the focal point of that offense that he is always option 1A for Draymond. Every single time Draymond has a ball, you watch his eyes, and that is always the first thing in his mind. That is not the case for Sabonis and Fox. And frankly, like that shouldn't automatically be a bad thing, right? If you just have more capable shooters, that should just make it better. I'm not so sure, especially in a season where a lot of guys have shown to be very, very up and down this season. Like, I actually wish Sabonis and Fox were more like Draymond and Steph this year. Like, I want to see them, like Jokic, Jokic, Murray, whatever you want to go with. Really solidify and build around that two-man game. If I were Sacramento, I would be a lot more intentional about it. Again, I don't have second spectrum. Whatever the frequency distribution of those plays, maybe I'm totally wrong and they're actually doing it as much as those other guys, but the eye test doesn't lead me to that realization again, because I kind of get the sense from Sabonis, like he's getting, voices in his ear, you got to get Keegan involved, you got to get Kevin involved, we got to get these guys, their confidence back up, yada, yada, yada. I don't know if that's the right call, frankly. Maybe you do it closer to the Jokic Murray thing where, hey, Keegan Murray, you're the new Michael Porter Jr. Go the fuck over there and don't move and space, okay? Great. Malik Monk, you can run around. You would be the last person in this threesome trifecta thing where we can do a bunch of two-man game, you and me, especially when Fox is on the bench or whatever. That is number one. And number two is obviously the defensive anchor, and that is mostly what I mean with this intangible weakness being the juice. There is no juice on defense on this roster, period. And I'm not saying we need guys to catch felonies on the court for open hand smacking the shit out of Yusuf Nurkic. Like, no, but somebody take pride on that end of the floor. You can tell this is clearly a source of frustration for me, and that is obviously due to the fact that I like this team, I like the players, I like Sabonis. I still think weirdly he is underrated, and I guess now he's overrated for stupid reasons from stupid talking head people, but like, I like them, I like Harrison Barnes, I really like Keegan Murray's upside, I love De'Aaron Fox, man. Holy shit, get a defensive stopper. And I said this in preseason and tweeted about it. Clearly there are cultural issues and controversy surrounding him, but Grant Williams was a guy that I was interested in. You refuse to play Vezenkov, I'm sure, because, well, one, Keegan-Murray minutes are sacrosanct and sacred here in the shrine and temple of Sacramento. Fine. But then two is I'm sure Vezenkov does not bring the amount of defensive juice that they can afford to have on the floor because they're already trash on defense. So I'm not saying go out and try and pluck Grant Williams from the Charlotte Hornets, but that is, in my opinion, the type and mold and archetype of player that should be not only prioritized, but like prioritized as a requirement. Like, similar to the Phoenix stuff almost, is your margin of error here, or margin of underperforming, is so thin. If Herter and Keegan and I guess Barnes and obviously Fox as well, like if they're not hitting shots, you are fucked. And that is where the whole thing with the stagnation part is, I think that's what it is, guys. Like, you hear guys on the court always say the same thing is, how did you come back and take the lead or whatever and win and steal the game or something? Well, our defense fueled our offense. How did you hold off this incredible upset team late in well, our defense fueled our offense. There is no defensive juice or fuel for this roster at any position. Maybe aside from Keegan-Murray and I guess some of Barnes. That is really what bothers me, honestly, is every time Sabonis isn't basically putting up an absurd stat line and, Fox as well right next to him, every time they miss a shot, it's like, fuck, man, we are not really going to stop them. So it's like counting down to an atom bomb explosion in Los Alamos, and it's like, God damn it, someone take pride in that. I don't understand, and whatever. Again, the proof of concept from last year, obviously it's a lot of faith and trust in Fox and Sabonis. They're great, they're whatever. Keegan, whatever. You made a bet and you made a call, and this is what you're getting. And so at the minimum now, I just hope if things don't go great for the rest of the season and in the postseason, which is the way it's looking right now, fix that. Obviously, the ideal is the same for the Dallas Mavericks, and they got P.J. Washington, and P.J. Washington, is great, and you guys have Keegan-Murray, and I know that, again, he is probably one of the very few bright lights and silver linings of the season. You need someone else. And Fox, again, is really, really good at steals. He is top 5 in steals per game. Great, okay. I'm saying for Barnes or Herter or even Sabonis, man. Like, do we need to have Sabonis playing 40 minutes a night as the offensive hub? Can we trust or can we develop Keegan-Murray to actually take guys off the bounce and self-create a little bit? God forbid any of these guys actually create shit for themselves that aren't named Fox. So, ideas. And then, you bring in whatever. I don't know. Someone who's actually a rim protector and good and useful. Okay? Sorry. That is it for the juice. Juice meaning mostly the defensive juice, but also offensively, sure. They just don't have the juice. And again, with your margin being that thin, that's the difference maker right there, man. I'm telling you right now. Unless, we do kind of a 180 for Fox. Like, you basically need him to be an MVP, and you need Sabonis to be a top 5 finisher in MVP right now. So, good luck. All right, overall takeaways. Number 1, sophomore slump versus stagnation, brought that up. Both sides are very fair and have merit to them. Hopefully that's helpful. 2, Sabonis counting stats does not equal impact. I realize now, I skirted around the overall sort of conclusion of the Sabonis thing, and I'm talking around it right now with some of the defensive stuff, is like the defensive lapses on Sabonis' end and whatever, the fact that they are literally better on defense with him on the bench is unbelievably telling to me. Specifically with the offensive stuff, the triple-doubles, double-doubles, whatever. Not only can you look at the on-off, and I'm sure some advanced metrics will be more important on that, but taking a step back, the magnitude of difference, if only from the on-off versus the box score metrics that we're seeing or outcomes, the fact that they are so different, at least, I hope, gives credence to the notion that maybe Mike Brown, we should be thinking outside the box when it comes to scheme for how we can maximize this team. Meaning, maybe Sabonis shouldn't be doing that much. Full stop. I mean, he is obviously a tank and a warhorse, and the dude's motor seems incredible, but I can't help but think to myself, especially in the postseason when he's being schemed against and has to work even harder to do any of these things, that dude's got to get tired eventually. And bodied up. Jokes about Draymond crushing his fucking chest bones aside, his sternum aside, that just doesn't feel sustainable to me, is to be relying on Sabonis that much, okay? So that is what I'm saying. I'm not trying to discredit the counting stats and say he is a bum and he is trash. I am just strictly saying when it comes to team success, at minimum, I would love to see some advanced metrics or stats that are showing that this is the best way for the Kings to be using Sabonis, is to be eating the stat sheet every single game. Okay, there you go. Third one, Fox and supporting cast inconsistency, beat that to death. And then last but not least, where's the juice? Focus areas, manufacture some goddamn juice. Don't know how you do that, particularly on the defensive end, but if you can, please, for the love of God, do that. Play Davion Mitchell more. I apologize. I completely forgot that he's on the thing. Again, there is just a philosophical approach to all of this shit where I am sure Davion's value on defense is not necessarily as revered or worth it in the eyes of the coaching staff, given his offensive kind of shortcoming stuff. Well, maybe it's not even just that he's not good enough on offense. It's that Fox is so dynamite. Whatever the case is, it doesn't matter. You're not going to get his defensive value because he can only play point guard. So it's either him or Fox. And again, frankly, Fox is really, really solid as an on-ball steal guy, whatever, defensively anyway. So, that's a little bit duplicative. And that maybe could be a potential chip down the line to actually getting a good two-way guard or small forward or whatever for this team after the season. Anyway, ideas. Second one is get Fox's mind right. All of this stress and frustration and emotions I'm expressing right now, right, are all looking at the projections and sense that I have with regard to their potential success in the postseason. Similar to Minnesota, literally nothing I have said so far could end up mattering if Fox or Anthony Edwards, for comparison and example, just go nuclear. And that could happen. I don't know, definitely not with Ann. I'm not sure I'm very confident that it would be a sustained entire series or multiple series or something. Fox is a little bit different. I could see it. I know this might be, I don't know, is this a hot take? Maybe it is. It probably is, considering how much spotlight like Jokic and the Nuggets get. I think Fox and Jamal Murray are celestial twins or something. Jamal doesn't have the steals and kind of the on-ball defense that Fox does, definitely not post-injury at least, but, at least last year, like Fox had that obviously killer instinct, clutch player of the year. In the postseason too, he was huge in that first round against Golden State. I just feel like they can both, even though Fox is having a bit of a down year, I could just see the two of them, for example, just turning it on, whatever gets them going. Somebody talks some shit or does something or whatever it is, I could just see the two of them dominate not only 4 out of 5, 5 out of 6 games in an entire series, meaning like a 38 and like 11 stat line or something nuts and like average that shit or something. I could also see it spilling into the next round too, and onto the next round and whatever. So get Fox's mind right. The free throws are concerning. That signifies a mental thing going on. I really hope he gets well, whatever it is. We'll tune in. Obviously, he had a break for the All-Star break now. I've got to go back in and look at that. I know they just got smacked by Denver, but who hasn't? So I want to check that out. One final last thing before the projection I'm realizing I did not mention before. Same thing with, related thing with the Kings shooting worse from the floor, from everywhere, their defensive ratings still being really bad. You know, the free throw rate on offense for themselves is, you know, bottom 8 in the league. And, you know, all of this sort of lack of juice and everything else. Fox and Sabonis each are averaging 36 minutes a game. So all of these shortcomings, it's not like a Coach Bud with Milwaukee where he's like, it's like, I'm only playing Giannis for 30 minutes or some shit. Like 36 minutes a game out of a 48-minute game, that's 12 minutes of difference divided by 4 quarters is 3 minutes. You've got 3 minutes a quarter without them. Again, the rotations are what they are. I don't even know necessarily, you know, did they both come out the same 3 minutes of each quarter? I doubt it. Point being, they are playing a lot of minutes, and they're still having a lot of these issues, so not a great sign as well. All right, projection is they're 8th in the West right now, meaning they would play, the Mavericks? Yeah, so I do not see them beating Dallas, full stop, and unfortunately, that could very well be a 5-game series or even worse, a sweep. I could see that. Ceiling, I'm going to say the second round because when, you know, whatever, let's say they come out at the top of the play-in, so they're the 7th seed, they are going to match up either with the Thunder or the Nuggets. Honestly, I just, in my heart right now, don't see them beating either. And if it's the Nuggets, hell no. If it's the Thunder, you know, we'll kind of see. That is actually a very, very interesting matchup. Chet might have like the best, you know, obviously he's a rookie, so this doesn't mean anything, but like the best postseason performance of his life. He might make Sabonis look silly. So that would basically be a Chet matchup series. So I would be curious for that, but I'm not feeling amazing about them even beating the Thunder in that sense. So anyway, thank you guys so much. Hopefully that was enlightening. That is the read on the Sacramento Kings, and stay tuned. We are almost done with the Western Conference. Thank you all so much for tuning in. It really, really means a lot. Clearly, I care a lot, and it was a lot of work, but a lot of fun producing each one of these episodes here. And so if you want to support us, if you want to yell at us, if you want to just tell us, you know, a proverbial pat in the back, it goes a long way. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkShank, and you can email us at TheThinkShank. I'm Skyler Reinhardt, and you can find me on Twitter at ReinhardtSkyler and Instagram at SkylerSamReinhardt. Thank you all so much again, and so excited for the rest of the season, guys.